The June 15th meeting of the Ways and Means Subcommittee will now come to order. Will all please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, we call the roll, please.
Roll call of the members of the Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councilor Keefe is absent. Councilor Novoselsky is absent. Councilor Sereno.
Here.
Here. Council President Visconti.
Here.
Here. And Chairman Rizzo.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
Thank you very much. And I'd also like to welcome two other members who are not on the committee but are here to participate in the discussions. Councilor Silvestri and Councilor Cogliandro. Thank you for your attendance. We're just going to go a little bit out of order before we get into it. There are several directors and department heads that are here, so we're going to probably try to move it along. We've blocked off 2 hours, so you know, we've all of us here, members of the committee, actually members of the entire city council, have got the narratives for each one of your departments, and if you just want to hit some of the high notes in terms of what you've accomplished, just kind of brief overview instead of going through page by page by page. That would be helpful in the interest of time. So just things you worked on last year, goals you'd set and goals you had achieved, and what you might be looking forward to achieving next year. Then you can jump right into the numbers as we typically do. If there's anything that jumps out that the council should know about, additional positions, increase in contracted services, whatever it might be, if you could just point that out for the edification of the councilors and the committee, I'd appreciate it. And with that being said, I won't belabor it. We'll go right in. I've been asked to take substance use initiatives out of order because I guess Julia has a prior commitment, so I will call first substance use initiatives. When you come to the podium, just state your name and your title, and we'll go right into it.
Thank you for taking me out of order. Julia Newhall, Director of Substance Use Disorder and Homeless Initiatives Office now.
Okay.
So,
What page? Oh, I'm sorry. Page, section 290, page 99.
So as some of you may know, our office officially changed its scope of work at the beginning of fiscal year 22 and expanded its target population to include the unsheltered homeless in the community. And this kind of happened organically with the onset of COVID and the overlap between those suffering from addiction and experiencing homelessness. It made sense for us to really target that population as the pandemic really exacerbated the problem in the community. And so early on in the pandemic, we worked with actually the Veterans Department to launch an emergency shelter program and try to go down to the encampments to primarily prevent transmission of COVID amongst that population, which we were able to do successfully. And as the fiscal year came and we realized that this problem isn't going away, we increased our scope of work to include a full-time harm reduction specialist, Chris Alba, who we've subcontracted for years, who's out there every single day working with this population and partnering with folks from MGH, Dr. Bunger, I think he's the chair of the Board of Health now. And they do everyday outreach, trying to, just make sure that these people have their basic needs met. Another, I'd say, big accomplishment is our partnership with Health Innovations, which is stationed now out of the set office on Revere Street 4 days a week. They provide all kinds of services to the homeless population, those who are just at risk for HIV and AIDS, syringe services, all kinds of harm reduction support, and we're really, really grateful to have them in the community. In addition to that, we have worked heavily with the rest of the HHS departments to really try to focus on the long-term goals of addressing homelessness so that we're not just doing like this piecemeal, that we're thinking about this strategically. We've worked with the planning department and we've developed an internal homeless and housing instability meeting, which meets bi-weekly to discuss some of the long-term strategies that are in place moving forward for this next year. So there's a lot definitely going on right now. On top of that, the opioid epidemic isn't getting any better. It's still, and has gotten worse over the past couple of years. And, you know, we are fortunate in this community to have the people that we have working for us who have the skill sets and the expertise to really try to decrease or hinder the consequences of drug-related overdose. So.
Okay, great.
Any questions?
Any changes in the budget itself from your
Some of our
department?
grants expired this year, so we had to go for other grants, but primarily we are grant funded, yeah.
Okay, it appears that way. So,
Yes.
which is great. Okay, well, thank you for that presentation.
Sure.
Any counselors have any comments, questions? Councilor Sereno.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I guess, to Mr. Visquet, just relative to this department, Sudi, are we utilizing any ARPA funds to help them out in their office? Or with any of their programs?
99. Sorry,
Yes,
hold on.
Counselor, we are, we did list Julia's position using opera funds, and, but since the time of printing the budget, we have received some settlement money from an opioid case settlement whereby the city is going to receive some payments which will offset the salary of the director and some of the staff. I believe the only position that we need ARPA funds right now is the harm reduction specialist. So we do have one position in the budget for 2023 with ARPA funds.
That's correct, yeah.
Is that it, Councilor Sereno? Okay. Any other councilors have any comments or questions? Council President
Thank you.
Visconti.
Welcome, Ms. Newhall, thank you for being here. Just a quick question regarding the grants in ARPA money. You said that we're only utilizing one position for with ARPA funds, and the grants have
Some of our grants have expired, not
Okay.
all of them.
Okay, and, you know, now based on the expiration, are there always new grants that are coming forth that we are applying for? Obviously, the department is a grant-funded department, and I would hate to see that dissolved, as well as hate to see it go into the general fund budget.
Right, right.
So my major concern is how do we keep that going without, let's consider opera money going away, how do we keep that going?
Right, so, yeah, of course, there's always different grants that are coming down the pipeline. We're actually writing a grant right now through the Department of Community Development and through the state. And there's a lot of money that's available right now. What you really just have to be careful with grants is that with grants, you have to hire people because you actually have to meet deliverables with those grants, and there's contractual requirements that come with that. So as you expand your grant portfolio, so to speak, you have to have the capacity to implement those grants as well. So I think what it comes down to, it needs to be a balance between trying to sustain some of this, at the same time making sure that you are not, offsetting too much of that through another funding source.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other councilors that have any questions or comments. I just have, you're obviously mostly grant funded, so that really, as it pertains to budget, I don't have too much. But, where you now have, a harm reduction specialist and you're addressing homelessness now as much, when this department first started, it was strictly substance abuse and now it's gone toward homeless. I'm just curious what type of successes you've had in getting people from a homeless situation into a shelter or into some other housing
So that's a tricky question. So a lot of these folks, the chronically homeless especially, they well, first, with COVID, there were a lot of stipulations around shelters where they had certain capacity issues that you just couldn't get people into shelters because of both the perimeters within them, but as well as, folks were scared to go into shelters because of the congregate settings and actually through the CDC guidelines, CDC was advising us to keep the encampments, not from dispersing them, not from breaking them down, because that's when we lose touch with these folks. We have a better shot at getting them into long-term treatment if we're continuing to engage them when we know where they are. The shelters, and we don't have any in this area as well, that you have to go across the bridge or go to Lynn or Lowell, which is difficult because these folks obviously don't have transportation, and there's time frames. So if you're not there by, say, such a time, then you're not getting in. So say someone goes to Lynn and they miss the count, they don't get in, then they're stuck there and they're trying to get to Cambridge to another shelter. These are all systemic problems that we're trying to work on now to really understand the scope of the issue. But, every day we're getting people into different places, detoxes, homeless shelters. I can go through our numbers and send you that information. We've interacted with over 900 people this year, so.
Right, well, that kind of leads to my next question, is because I was looking at these performance measures that
Yeah.
you had put out, and it's a little bit alarming as the numbers just continue to go up. I mean, 950 interactions, 950 engagements, that's up in just a few years from 650.
And let me just preface that some of these folks, these are they're duplicates too. So we're counting every time we interact with someone, whether we see that person 3 or 4 times a week, or whether we see that person once a year. We're counting every interaction as its individual case.
Sure, well, I mean, it's just the people in distress that I guess I'm looking at. I mean, the Narcan distribution, it's been 150, you're projecting 200 right now for 2023. So, I mean, obviously, we still have a real serious problem that requires
Absolutely.
Serious attention. I know the numbers were up nationwide last year in overdose deaths, and so
Over
again,
100,000 people died.
Yeah, I think last year I thought the number I heard, and you would know better than me, I thought it was 109,000. So, you've got your work cut out for you down there, and hopefully we can see these numbers over a period of time start to go the other way, because to see them go up like that really is alarming. So, but I know that we're trying to do something, and I just have one more question.
Sure.
If somebody was administered Narcan,
Yes.
there was a program, and this is going back several years, so I kind of forget. I don't know if it's still going on, where the fire department
Yeah,
would pay visits.
post-overdose outreach, yep.
Okay, so is that still
Absolutely.
taking place?
Yep,
Okay.
we're actually doing it, whereas we were doing it once a week before, we're trying to respond to those within 24 to 48 hours, so yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much,
Sure.
Julia.
Oh, go ahead, Counselor. I already spoke. Okay, I have one question, if
Sure.
you don't mind.
Councilor Visconti.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In your professional opinion, how many homeless people do you think we currently have out there in the city of Revere?
So I'll be honest with you, our homeless numbers have tripled in the past couple of years. Right now, we're on average dealing with anywhere between 30 to 40 people who are homeless in this community. Sometimes, Revere it borders a lot of other communities, and we have public transportation, so sometimes people just stop through and then they'll leave, or they'll come down for the day when the shelters are closed and they're not allowed to be in there, and then they'll go back at night. But then we have our regular folks who are, pretty much here, all the time. And that's between 35 to 40 folks at a time. Yeah.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, Julia, thank you very much.
Thank
We'll
you.
get you in and out of here.
Thank
and,
you. I have my niece's graduation tonight, so thank you for letting me go out of order.
No problem at all. Okay, we'll revert back to the regular order. We're going to go to short-term rental inspections. Nick Catanazzo, Section 2, page 72.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow councilors. I'm going to give you a brief overview. Our office has been in existence probably just a little under a year. We had to start everything from scratch. It wasn't like going into a pre-existing department. So we had to do everything from scratch, from purchase orders to software package, learn all these different things we had to learn in the department. As you know, City of Revere's had a big problem with short-term rentals, and I believe Councilor McKenna and Councilor Ganasso came up with the ordinance to put an ordinance in place so we could control a lot of these people who were doing short-term rentals. Right now, we're working with the fire department and an inspector, Vincent Argenzio, who works with me, does the inspections with the fire department on all short-term rentals. Just to give you, we have a great software package, Genesis, which picks up anybody that does a rental in the city, and also sends out a letter to them saying that they have to register their property with the City of Revere. So just to give you some statistical numbers, we have identified over the last year, and this is daily updates, we have identified 458 properties in the city, removed 369 properties, registered 40 properties, and we have 5 pending, and we have also have 45 fines outstanding right now that we're working with in the city. So we've knocked out a lot of these properties that, we're having problems with illegal apartments, people that didn't have proper egresses in their houses. So this is a big problem throughout the United States right now. Before anybody can get registered, they have to go to ISD and get a good stand-in check, we call it. Make sure there's no fines, no liens on the property, or any illegal apartments. In other words, somebody could be renting out an illegal apartment as an Airbnb. So before they can even start the process and start the registration, once they fill out the registration and they get the good stand-in check, we go in with the fire department, inspect the apartment, give them a certificate. It's good for 1 year, and it's $200. Like I said, the software package we have is amazing. It really is. I mean, if anybody would like to come to our office, I think we showed one of the councilors, and they were amazed by it. So, we have a good system in place right now. Right now the summer's coming. A lot of people don't rent properties, their Airbnbs in Revere in the winter, as we all know. But now that the summer's coming, we're having more and more people come in, and I think it's a good thing to have for the city because may it not be a moneymaker for the city, but it's a deterrent of, keeping the city safe. And we all know what happened down the Point of Pines with a huge problem having parties and disturbing the whole neighborhood and everything. Finally, we got the guy sold the house. We brought him to court and everything. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Nick.
Sure.
Members of the committee first, anybody have a question? Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. I do have one question.
Sure.
It seems like a lot of people are buying properties in the city just to use it for Airbnb.
Correct.
Has the discussion happened that we were going to potentially put a cap on the number of licenses we're going to allow?
No, not as yet, no. It's not in the ordinance, and nobody's mentioned it to us, yeah, no.
Okay.
Also, just let me add that if somebody has a condo, say you had 2 condos in a building, or you bought a condo, you don't live there, but you have to live in the city in order to do this also, according to the ordinance. So if you had a condo, you got to get permission from the condo association. We require that. So it's, you can't just have anybody come in there. So, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Council President Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nick, you just touched on something that I thought was, you said you had to live in the city in order to do the Airbnb, but I was under the impression the ordinance said that the multifamilies had to be owner occupied. Is that not
I-
accurate?
I don't think
I
that.
thought the properties
No.
had to be
So you could
owner-occupied.
have a house, say in West Revere, and you can have a two-family on, down the street.
Okay.
But you can rent out both properties
Okay,
as an Airbnb, okay? But in order to do this program, you couldn't live in Linfield, own a house in Revere and do them as a Airbnb.
so only Revere residents?
That's
that-
correct.
That live in
That's
the
correct.
city can do?
That's
Air-
correct.
Airbnb?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you very much. Councilor Silvestri.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here tonight, Nick. And what is the time frame? Like, what identifies a short-term rental?
30 days.
Okay, so
30 days,
30
yeah,
days.
yeah.
Now, you said the software picks up any rentals that happen?
That's correct. So when we first started the program, we had to generate a letter. So we did all the letters, Vincent and myself, and sent them out. So go to find out, we contacted the software company, and they said, we can do the letter for you. So not only do they pick up the person that's going in, like Airbnb or Vrbo, and they send a letter to them saying that they have to register their property. Once we identify that, and we give them like 2 weeks or 3 weeks to register, then we send them another letter notifying them that they're in violation, and then finally a fine.
So is that software tied in with Airbnb and the short-term rental properties, or how do they identify the?
Well, I'm not too sure how they do identify them, but, we, Ruben Cantor he went through this whole thing pretty thoroughly, and I'll tell you, it's a great package, it really is. It's pretty good.
Thank you.
So I feel really secure with it, that, it's doing the best for the city. And we've gotten calls from other places saying, what do we use, and this and that, and they do a great job. Well worth the money.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other councilors. I'll just say this. I mean, obviously, there's nothing really budgetarily that we're going to, talk about here. It's a small,
Yeah,
small budget, small department, but, I think, I'm stating the obvious. I mean, the goal here, God bless, if people meet all the requirements to operate an Airbnb, it's
Right.
not unique to Revere. It's
Right.
around the world. So,
yeah,
but as long as the people are held accountable that are putting people up, I know some very good owner-operators of these Airbnbs that are here in
Yeah.
the city. They're a credit to the city.
yeah,
And they do a wonderful job. They take pride in their property. They get involved with or as involved as the people renting want them to be. So
Yeah.
we've got some real solid people. And then on the flip side, as a counselor, as someone being off the council, I've received complaints of places that are operating as Airbnbs that are causing problems in the neighborhoods. And as long as those problems are being addressed, I guess that's all we can ask.
yeah. Oh, just to let you know that if they don't post on, Airbnb or one of these websites to do these rentals, there's no, somebody could call us and say, I think my neighbor's doing an Airbnb. But if we don't see it on our site, we have no basically jurisdiction other than to send them a letter saying we have reason to believe. You know what I'm saying? So
And then you
it's sort
give
of a
them
difficult.
time but and then just so I'm clear, okay, somebody complains, there's, in their opinion, because they live there a
Right.
long time, whatever.
Yes.
They identify what they think are these short-term rentals.
Right.
You send a letter. I would imagine in that letter, there's a time frame, like you contact our office.
Contact us at our
Otherwise,
office.
we're gonna
Exactly.
pursue
Correct.
whatever action. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that's the only other thing, that, could possibly happen if we don't see it. But I got to tell you, probably 95%, 98% are picked up by this site,
Okay.
And, a red dot means, and I wish Councilor McKenna was here because she filed a lot of complaints, and most of the places are in Beachmont because they got those big 3-family houses and they rent them out. So I got the number here somewhere. So we had like 14 of them in Beachmont, and some of them we can't identify, even through our website. There's pictures, but we can't identify them, and there's no address. Most of them have an address, but some of them don't. And those are difficult. We got a bunch of those, too. So we're still trying to identify them. But I think, when, going forward, we're going to look for an increase over the period of years of more Airbnbs. It's a big thing right now, seeing hotel rooms. A hotel room now in Boston is between $300 and $400, and you can get a whole house. It has to be the entire floor. It can't rent out a room. It's got to be the whole entire unit.
Right, exactly. Nick, thank you for that explanation.
Yeah.
I don't see any other counselors that have any other questions, so again, we appreciate your service, appreciate your service to the community, and
All right.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Again,
Chairman.
for being here tonight.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move along to Public Health Initiatives, Section 2, page 93.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Buck. I'm the Director of Public Health, and I'm here to talk about the Public Health Department.
Okay.
Our mission is to promote, protect, and preserve the health, safety, and well-being of the city's residents. So last year I started talking about COVID. This year I'm going to start talking about COVID. Hopefully it's the last year I'll have to start talking about that. So we continued our COVID testing program. We still have 2 Stop the Spread sites here in Revere at the high school and at Suffolk Downs. We also added to the COVID testing program 2 large influxes of at-home test kits, which we distributed using the Revere Public School System, partnerships with other departments here, our daycares, and just regular resident distribution. We also continued to work on getting Revere vaccinated. We had a goal of reaching 70%. We're much farther past that now. I think we reached 70% around September 2021. We're in the low 80s in terms of fully vaccinated Revere residents. We've hosted very regular vaccine clinics throughout the year in many, many different locations, many places of worship, partnering with the police department to go into the substation on Shirley, many festivals, the public schools, the senior center. We have a really good relationship with the school department and worked throughout the school year to help with COVID protocols. And we also, worked to get a new contact tracing team up and running once the state's contact tracing team was disbanded. We continued our flu program. Since we last talked, we have a shared epidemiologist and shared public health nurse. These are both grant-funded positions that work in both Revere, Chelsea, and Winthrop. It's a really big asset to have an epidemiologist that we can regularly refer to. Our social worker position is also up and running. This is a shared position for all of Health and Human Services. They sit in the public health office, and she's kind of up and running and working in a lot of different, working with both residents and working on programming. We have really good relationships and work closely on programming with the SUDI office that just presented, on rodent control, on heat initiatives, on other climate initiatives. And then we also worked on getting all of the public health statutory licensing loaded into CitizenServe. It previously was just on paper, and kind of working through all of licensing all of the public health statutory requirement stuff. And then in 2023, obviously we want to continue to work towards getting COVID to be an endemic issue, not a pandemic. And we will continue to work through getting all of the public health licensing up and loaded onto CitizenServe and making that a regular, well-functioning system. We want to expand our immunization program to bring childhood immunizations, which will obviously work in very close coordination with the Revere Public School System to make sure that all of our public school kids have all the immunizations that they need. And continue to work on the community health needs assessment and work to help bring the school nurses more in line. As you guys know, many of the school nurses are under the public health department budget as well. So we're working to try to bring both of those groups together over the next year.
Okay. I'm sure we've all digested all of that right now, so any counselors have any questions at all? No questions from anybody? Okay. Council President Visconti.
Thank you. Welcome, Lauren. I appreciate you being here. Just looking at your numbers, looks like you increased the nurse positions in your budget. Can you, and I think you added a regional nurse, is that correct? Along with a social worker? Is that,
Yep,
if I'm understanding it correctly?
Yeah, the regional nurse is a
elaborate a little bit?
grant-funded position. It's a shared public health nurse, so we have her 2 days a week. We also share her with Winthrop and Chelsea. The public health nurse and the epidemiologist that I was mentioned are both grant-funded through the North Suffolk Public Health Collaborative, which is the group of public health departments that we are in, again, with Chelsea and Winthrop. And so that's a grant-funded position, and it's the administration of it is through MAPC. But we have the public health nurse 2 days a week. So she helps with a lot of the communicable disease, tuberculosis stuff that's, state mandated.
Okay, and then the 3 nurses added, is that school nurses, or, so are we putting a nurse in each school? Is that what we're doing right now? Or
Yeah, so
I don't know if we have a nurse in each school.
there is, so
okay.
there's a nurse at each school, and there's 3 nurses at the high school,
Okay.
a nurse at each elementary school, a nurse at each middle school, and there's 2 float nurses.
Okay.
So the school nurse kind of discrepancy. There are some nurses that sit under the RTA contract. There are some nurses that sit under the city. We call them city nurses and school nurses. They're all school nurses. The city nurses sit under my department. It's because this happened a long time ago. I'll let Rich talk about that if you want. But it's pretty hard to get nurses that are DESE qualified and DESE certified. The DESE certified nurses are the ones that sit under the RTA contract because they meet all the qualifications to be DESE certified.
Okay.
It's very hard to find nurses like that, especially in a pandemic. It's hard to find nurses to do kind of any job. So we hired a lot of school nurses under the city side because we just needed to fill positions. The hope is that in 2 years, they will transition over to the school side. So we'll have less and less city side nurses. The hope is that they'll all get over to the school side eventually.
Council, just to be clear, all those nurses are ultimately funded by the school department. The school nurses that have the DESE certification are allowed to fall under the Revere Teachers contract. Without those certain certifications, they don't qualify for that, so they sit on the city's ledger as Unit B laborers. And like Lauren said, the hope is to transition them over once they get their certifications, pass their MTELs, and have that practical experience. But those costs are ultimately borne by the schools through the Schedule 19 accounting that we do.
So we're getting reimbursed.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Silvestri.
I don't have a question. Lauren, I just want to commend you. I think you were here for minutes and COVID hit, and you took it in stride, and you did some amazing work. You and your staff and your team, I commend you for it, and you haven't missed a beat, and you've done some amazing things, so I appreciate everything you've done for the city. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Yeah, I think the only question I had, I think it was already answered. The 3 new positions that were created are going to be basically reimbursed from the school department, Schedule 19 over. So, it wasn't indicated on here, so I think a lot of us looked at that like but anyway, I think that's clear now. No other questions? Thank you very much for appearing. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your work. Thank you very much. Okay. So we will move right along, and we'll move in to Community Health and Engagement, page 96 under Section 2.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Natalie Kong. I'm the Chief of Health and Human Services. I'm here in Dimple Rana's stead. She is the She's the Director of the Community Health and Engagement Department. I apologize in advance. This is obviously my first time here at a budget hearing. So I'm just going to kind of go as quickly as I can, knowing that there's many people behind me that need to go. I'm sure you have the same thing I'm looking at right now, but the mission statement for community health and engagement is to increase access to opportunities for active living and healthy eating. And we're doing that through community engagement and leadership development, as well as promoting civic engagement. And we also hope to address the social determinants of health, policy, system, and environmental changes. Some of the FY22 accomplishments, one major one is we're increasing the participation in Revere's 2020 census to show that we are one of the fastest growing cities in the Commonwealth. Our population is at a little over 62,000. That was in large part to some kind of boots on the ground, street outreach, and door knocking, phone banking efforts that were led and continue to be led by our Canvas coordinator. We also did a lot of stuff around urban farming. We helped to pass the beekeeping ordinance, as well as the ordinance to allow for the keeping of chickens in the homes that now sit under Lauren Buck's Department of Public Health, to kind of create those regulations and enforce those regulations so that folks are doing it up to code and up to health standards. We also increase, along with that urban agriculture theme, raised garden bed program that there's 20 of them now, and they were given to those who are income qualified so that they can kind of grow and even sell their own foods right here in Revere. The community gardens, the number of them also increased, doubled from 2 to 3. There's one at Revere High, one at Gibson Garden, and then there was one that was replaced at McKinley School, and a new one built at the Corey Abrams Community Garden over in Beachmont. So now we have 4. There is a long wait list for those, especially as inflation is on the rise and the price of food is going up. It's been really great to see folks take an interest in this and kind of help to expand our farmers market, which is also under the purview of this department, running the Revere's Farmers Market. The first day was last Friday. Something major that happened during the pandemic was the COVID Ambassador Program, which was transitioned to the Community Health Ambassador Program, kind of recognizing that though it started with COVID, there are many reasons to keep an ambassador, sort of like a street outreach team, to help sort of be an olive branch to those communities that were hardest hit by COVID, but may be very difficult to reach out to based on maybe language barriers or other cultural barriers. So to kind of make it not just COVID focused, they were rebranded and called the Community Health Ambassador Program. They continue to help, with a lot of the volunteer efforts that I'll get to in a minute, but also helping with the food pantry and staff in the food pantry. They're helping with other needs in City Hall, like the Home ARPA Relief Program that's happening right now. So they're kind of jack of all trades, sort of. That's kind of how I see them, as filling in lots of spots where they're needed. Another example that is now coming to my mind is when the schools were really hit hard by the Omicron surge, and they needed more people to help swab and help kind of do more rapid tests on kids as people were coming back from winter break. All right, and now over to the food side of things. Another major arm of this program that's led by 2 co-coordinators is the food hub piece. So during the pandemic, it's no surprise to anyone, food insecurity was on the rise due to inflation and other kind of side effects of COVID, I'll say. Food prices are on the rise, and food security remains a dire issue in the city. So we have had a food for free program on Thursdays, which is only for Revere residents, and then a food pantry program. A food pantry, that's on Wednesdays. The food pantry was originally at the First Congregational Church, but because of the high volume, I think the numbers are in one of the tables in front of you, they had to move to 200 Winthrop Ave because they just did not have the space in their church for the massive amounts of free food that we were getting from the Greater Boston Food Bank and other donors. So that's something that continues now, we've done in the previous FY, and I'll go over kind of our goals for the next FY. And then kind of leading on to that, we have a volunteer program that kind of grew out of the food pantry, but we're hoping to kind of create in the next fiscal year a more formalized volunteer program, because we recognize that there are many ways to volunteer in the city, not just in this department, not just in HHS, but like the spring cleanup that we had in April, right? That's an example I can think about. So we're hoping to really formalize that and really engage more of our youth, work with the high schools, or work with the high school, and just engage other young adults or just other people who want to help out. Going over to our goals and objectives now, a big thing is continuing that kind of food economy development. We are hoping to take 200 Winthrop Ave and create a food hub that will serve as sort of a shared kitchen space to help grow some of the informal food economy in our residents and kind of bring them from their tiny kitchens at home, maybe selling some of their baked goods at the farmer's market, or maybe their food trucks, and giving them a bigger commercial kitchen space so that they can really expand their operations. We're hoping to have a multi-use space, meeting space, teaching space, things like that. Another thing that we may have room for is to continue the food pantry, but we're also helping the church kind of take back some of that food pantry work that they were doing but just don't have the space for. So that's one goal that we're hoping to accomplish too, just so that we can build out the space. Funding for that is going to happen through grants. We already have a bunch of grants that are helping us do a feasibility study right now. We have some prelim designs already and hoping to get the more finalized ones later this month. We have some other grants already from CHA, from the and from other places, FSIG. I can't think of what the acronym means right now, but we have a mobile van coming because it's being funded by that grant. So lots of exciting things happening in the food space. Another goal you see there is just creating a food policy council, made up by some residents who are interested in more kind of urban agriculture, but also just local food businesses, just to kind of inform what we do so that we really are meeting the needs of our residents who can benefit from it the most. And then the last thing is just volunteer review, which I kind of touched upon already, is just really growing that and making it more formal, making it just an easier place for folks to see events coming up and then to sign up for those events. I did a lot of talking. I don't know if there's anything else you want me to talk about.
Well, we appreciate the information. Council is on the committee first that have questions. Councilor Serino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Dr. Kong, for being here tonight to present this. My question is, back before COVID, I believe it was under this department, facilitated neighborhood groups. Like, I know El Baker at one time facilitated them, and then Vani took over after El. Basically, in Ward 6, I know we had, the West Revere group, we had the North Revere neighborhood group. There were other neighborhood groups around. I know that through COVID, they did the neighborhood pods, and they were doing, some events. They did a cleanup, but is there any appetite? I know there is a desire and a want among residents in the neighborhoods. Is there a desire to kind of get a regular schedule of neighborhood group meetings and not only activities, but meetings where residents can come out and discuss issues in the neighborhood and, either building playgrounds or improvements and stuff like that? Now that we're past the pandemic, are we looking toward reactivating those groups in that way? That would be my question. Thank you.
No, definitely. I'd say yes, there is an appetite from just the community conversations with the mayor. I know that there is definitely an appetite for just more conversations and more, engagement with folks who work in City Hall. Our Canvas coordinator is going to continue to do that. And I think we're hoping to tap into volunteer review, but also we're rebranding the community health ambassadors to community health liaisons. That's going to sit in 311 and kind of, because 311 is already kind of very resident facing, so we felt that was it just made more sense for them to be there. But our Canvas coordinator, who has been training the ambassadors, are going to help with that transition, potentially even be a liaison herself and kind of morph into that role. And hopefully we'll be able to create that type of more personal engagement that was lost during the pandemic because everything became kind of virtual and socially distant. But yes, there is an appetite, and we are hoping to get that underway. There's a lot of a lot of projects that we want, and we just weren't sure how many of them to include in this document because it's already pretty lengthy as it is. But yes, absolutely.
Council President Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Kong, Dr. Kong, for being here. Question, in terms of the $317,000 that is being paid out through other sources, and I know you mentioned there were grants. How much of that is being utilized by ARPA money? That's my first question, and then I have a couple more if you don't mind, but.
So I believe all of the, currently, what we have is all the staffing is going to be under ARPA grants for now. We are hoping to obviously get more grants to support some of the staffing. A lot of the youth work that's happening is being funded by a grant already, so a lot of the folks that were ambassadors that are under the age of 25 are going to be transitioned to the Youth Works program to continue doing that. It's actually all year round now. That funding source was increased, so we'll be able to use Youth Works and sort of have it be like a pipeline for hopefully folks who want to stay within the municipality and work and be like a pipeline there. But currently the director, assistant director, the two co-coordinators for the food hub as well as Canvas are going to be under ARPA, is my understanding. But we're always looking for more grants to fund that, because I think before ARPA, this was an entirely grant-funded department, and we obviously expect it to continue to be that way. Right now, the current grants that we were focusing on were grants for the food hub, so we can buy refrigeration, we can buy the refrigerated van to kind of take some of these deliveries, food deliveries. So that was kind of the focus, but we're hoping to shift gears so we can get more funding sources that can supplement salary. Because current grants that are listed there, unfortunately, aren't allowed to supplement salary. The other thing to note is that one of the positions was moved to another department too, so that's no longer going to be funded. At least, I mean, I'm not sure, I haven't looked at the budget for that other department, but it's not going to be funded under ARPA through this department at least, so we were able to kind of move that. And hopefully we'll have one of the co-coordinators for the food hub only be, I want to say temporary, as we transition some of the food pantry work back to the church.
Okay. I guess, like I mentioned to Ms. Newhall, obviously ARPA funds are going to go away.
Yep.
And they're eventually going away, and I just, can't stress enough the impact these funds have if it goes into the general fund, and
Right.
and that's something that we really can't have. It's
Right.
just it would cause the taxpayers quite a bit, and
Right.
not that I think you guys do great work, and but you look at it and say, with grants and all the grants out there, I'm just hoping that you guys are able to cover the cost of the salaries, because I know it's gone up in terms of numbers from last year. The salary, the FTEs have gone up quite a bit. So that's one of my major concerns. The other concern I have is I know the 200 Winthrop Ave, building has been probably a better move for the city in terms of dispersing the food and stuff. The problem with that is the residents that are on that street.
Yeah.
That, to be honest with you, are irate. I've gotten many calls from them. They're just not able to get in to their own houses, and if I lived on that street, I would be quite upset that I would have to deal with that on a regular basis. And I've talked to the chief quite a bit, but I just hope that the people that work there are respectful for the people that reside there, because I've gotten many complaints about it, and I don't know what the answer is. When you say that the transition of the food hub is going to be moved back to
Yep.
to the church,
So what-
Is that where it's going to be dispersed as well?
Yeah, so what you're referring to is most likely the line of cars that we
Yes.
are having during our food pantry on Wednesdays. That's usually the highest volume that we get, and it used to be at the church. But because of the high volume, they couldn't hold the amount of food that they needed to meet the demand. So we've already started, we have meetings, we already had one meeting, we have another one later this month with Pastor Tim and Wendy over at the church to try and transition it back. It may not be at the full capacity at first, but we recognize that it can't stay there in its current form forever for many reasons, one of which is obviously the residents there, but the other one is that we are planning on building it out and making it so that it's safer and more state-of-the-art so that we can use it for the reasons we want to use it. And that's hopefully going to happen in September. Meetings are happening, and there's already discussions that the church is having with other churches, like St. Anthony's, that may have a larger space that can encompass some of the food. So, yeah, that's definitely something that's been on our mind, and we've been aware of the situation, and we don't intend for it to continue for much longer, just for many reasons, one of which is the residents, other is just construction has to happen at some point too, so.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One question and a comment. Thank you for being here this evening. I'm just looking at the urban trails. If somebody had an idea for an urban trail, say a walking path in Ward 3, perhaps, would I come to you with an idea, and then we could research grant opportunities and things like that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, it wouldn't probably, I'm guessing now, so don't take this as gospel, but I'm assuming I'd probably have to involve DPW or other departments, Parks and Rec. But yeah, I'm sure we can collaborate, look for grant opportunities to create more walking trails. I mean, like I said in the mission statement, this is what we're here to do, increase or improve everyone's quality of life through healthier eating and a healthier lifestyle. So we're game.
Thank you. I think you all do a great job, do a service to our community. And I do want to just say, when it comes to the food hub and volunteer coordination and the new volunteer programming, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Ralph DeChico to my right over here. So I wanted to make sure that he is also noted as someone who's doing a lot over there as well. But again, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, he's the brains behind all of it, so.
Thank you. Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Dr. Kong, thank you for being here tonight. And as I said to Lauren, I greatly appreciate everything you've done. When COVID hit and you were not in a city employee at the time, you stepped in and you kind of brought a calming effect to the situation that was going on. But more important, it's very tough to sell health and human services to the public, right? It's something that doesn't bring in any finances to the city, but until you're impacted with mental health or substance abuse or need these services, you don't understand how just important they are. And I want to just commend you and the team that you have done over the past year and the things that you've accomplished, because it's been amazing work, and it's something that the city much needs at this time.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Any other councilors who haven't spoken yet, wishing to be heard? Doctor, thank you for being here. I mean, thankfully, it's primarily grant funded. It's a total budget of just under $20,000. So, certainly isn't a budget buster, but as Councilor Visconti had alluded to earlier, there's going to come a point, hopefully not, maybe there'll be other grants that are available, where we'll have to find, ways on funding this. It seems right now with the ARPA funding that we're getting, we're able to fund a bunch of positions that we ordinarily wouldn't be able to, or the taxpayers wouldn't be able to, but, so we're fortunate to have that. And, while we do keep on doing the good work, I just want to say one thing, and it has nothing to do with the budget, but to follow up again what Councilor Visconti was talking about, the location over there, and I've seen those cars stacked up. I mean, to me, it's a little bit of a public safety issue, the way they're stacked up. People try, usually it's right around the time people are coming home from work, and so you've got, and it's on Winthrop Avenue, so I just don't know, is there a possibility to use like a school or something like that? Or do you need, I mean, are they doing actual cooking here, or are they just distributing food, right? They're just,
Yeah, so no actual cooking, but what happens is the food deliveries will come in earlier in the week, and it's like pallets and pallets of like cans or vegetables or other, types of groceries. So we have like pallets and pallets of
so
them.
it's a storage issue?
It's a storage issue. It's a storage issue. So that's why the first congregational church, it had to move, because they just didn't have the space to hold those pallets and pallets of food. We're operating without even a loading dock. So the fact that we're able to even, pull it off, somehow get it up those stairs and back down those stairs, packed and stuff, it's definitely a labor of love. But it's just a storage issue. It's just a food storage issue, which is the big holdup. But again, we have conversations already in the works to try and get it moved, so that, because we knew all along that it couldn't be there, even if there were no residents around. Just the fact that the building itself needs dire updates so that it can function the way we'd like it to function, and we just won't be able to have an active construction site and give people food safely while also not being a public safety hazard ourselves. So, hopefully this fall you'll have less phone calls from the neighbors, because we're given we have a Labor Day deadline for ourselves. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Great. Well, again, we appreciate, the update on all the work you're doing. We appreciate the work you're doing. And if there's no other questions, we'll move along. I thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving along, Section 2, page 102, Elder Affairs.
Thank you, Chairman Rizzo, Council President Visconti, councilors. My name is Deborah Pesca DiGiulio. I'm the Director of Elder Affairs. I believe I have the best job in the city of Revere because I get to interact with the seniors of Revere every day. Our mission statement is to innovate and deliver services that meet the changing needs of all members of Revere's elder community, including younger seniors and seniors from our diverse cultural communities. We embrace diversity and serve through the lens of equity. Just as an overview, by the beginning of fiscal year 22, all elder affairs activities were in full operation after COVID. This level of activity continued until the rise of COVID again. The rates returned, forced a suspension of activities during January and part of February out of concern for our seniors. By the middle of February, exercise programs, daily social recreation activities all resumed. As of March, we have fully resumed. And I just want to touch on some of the highlights, accomplishments that my team has accomplished last year. Educationally, we conducted 3 PC training programs for 25 seniors, provided them with 20 free refurbished laptops, those who completed the program. This has become a pilot, and we're going to be ongoing with this. We conducted 12 lunch and learn sessions, and this is where we would invite somebody in from the city. We had Revere Housing, we've had auditing, but they would come in, the departments would come in and do live presentations to our seniors to get them more familiar with what each department does. Communication-wise, we reviewed and updated the Elder Affairs webpage on revere.org. We have enhanced distribution of the monthly newsletters to seniors, adding digital access to existing postal delivery. And we have implemented the use of an automatic notification system to provide timely information and important information to our seniors. We've also conducted numerous senior center updates on Revere TV to keep everybody updated. Recreationally, which is our favorite, we resumed senior bus trips in December 2021, with the Yuletide trip to Newport, Rhode Island. We resumed all exercises. As I said, exercise programs. We began a walking club. We do twice-a-week bingo, 17 lunch, entertainment parties, ceramics painting. We've also introduced an evening activities for those younger seniors, which included Monday evening ceramics and yoga classes. We have served approximately 200 people conducting blood pressure clinics, Shine Medicare counseling, podiatrist, and hearing clinics. We saw the distribution of more than 300 COVID-19 rapid tests in conjunction with Department of Public Health. We served as a COVID testing and vaccination site for a while. And we coordinated with the mayor's office and on-site support for tax return assistance. Transportation-wise, we've provided approximately 3,000 shuttle rides, bringing seniors to medical appointments, grocery stores, pharmacies, banks, and churches in Revere. Shuttle drivers also distributed more than 300 lunches to our seniors during that COVID shutdown between 1/3/22 and 2/24/22. We've had the pleasure of working with 6 Revere High students performing community service during our summer months and during the school year, which we plan to continue. We really enjoyed bringing the students in with our seniors. And finally, our facility, we're in the process of repairing the back hallway. We're in the process of repairing the front ramp. So those should take place this year. Our biggest goal is really increasing culturally diverse activities and events at the Senior Center. This is something that we're working on with the Chief of Talent and Culture to provide activities and events that reflect the diversity of our community. So we're planning more parties in that sense. I have really nothing to point out on the budget at the numbers, so if anybody has any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I appreciate it. Any counselors have any questions? Any counselors, questions, comments? All right,
I
Council
guess
President
it's,
Visconti.
right back at me. Deb, I just want to say thank you for everything you do over there. You do a great job. It's probably one of my favorite buildings to enter into in the city. So, you know, being so close to it, it's very easy just for me to pop in and say hello. And, you know, the welcome I get there is always a great welcome, which I appreciate. Just a couple quick questions, if you don't mind. I know we're looking at, correct me if I'm wrong, are we adding some positions in your department, if you can explain that a little bit? I'm not sure. Looking at last year's, I think we're adding, I don't know if they've been filled or what the situation is.
So we have increased one of our drivers from part-time to full-time, so we have 2 full-time drivers. And I believe we are also adding a part-time custodian.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we just, we're getting that budget back to the 2019 staff and pre-pandemic. We're able to, you know, temporarily stop the full-time drivers. And so the budget got pretty lean during COVID. We were closed for a while, but the positions that are added are just restoring positions back to the 2019 levels.
Great. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
And keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other questions, thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate the explanation, the accomplishments and goals, and unless there's any further questions, we appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go a little bit out of order here. We're going to go to Commission on Disabilities, Section 2, page 108.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and fellow councilors. Council President Ralph DeChico, Chair of the Commission on Disabilities. I have a very big budget, so this might take a long time. Our mission statement is to increase opportunities and remove barriers for people with disabilities by facilitating full and equal participation in all aspects of life within the city of Revere. Our fiscal 2022 accomplishments was we continue providing resources and needs to disabled residents due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We continue to update the disability page on the city websites with important information for disability residents and families pertaining not only to COVID-19 information, but all other information for food resources and anything else that was needed. I also worked with the Revere Beach Partnership and Save the Bay, Save the Harbor on implementing policies and procedures to make Revere Beach more accessible for residents of Revere and surrounding communities, along with working with our Community Planning Office to finalize the redevelopment of the playground of Ambrose Park to become fully ADA compliant and inclusive for all. So if anybody drives by there now, they'll see it is under construction down there. There was various delays for various reasons and whatnot. So when that gets done, it's going to be a fully compliant playground, fully inclusive for everyone. Some of the goals and objectives for fiscal year 2023, I've had a couple on here for a while that are pretty near and dear to my heart, as I've stated in the past. The first one, it does not mean for me to be at the helm of it, but the Commission on Disabilities, one of my goals, it should be a full-time, regularly staffed department within the city of Revere, because there are all aspects of needs. And when I say it should be a full-time department, my goal, I've talked to Mark Silvestri's Veteran Services and also Deb Pesker in Elder Services. They go part and partial. They basically serve the same residents. So you do have veterans that are disabled, you have seniors that are disabled. So it's almost that it should be working hand in hand, which we do, but it's not like a full-time department. Hopefully whenever Veteran Services calls me or the elders, hopefully they feel I respond quick enough to them, as quick as I can. Sometimes during COVID, it's taken me a little bit longer for other things that I've been doing, but I try and get on top of it as much as I can after hours and whatnot with fuller responses. But that's one of my goals, so that any type of disabled resident within Revere knows where to go to and has the resources made available to them to let them know who they need to call and what to do. Another goal of mine is to adopt MGL 40, Section 22G, which states any city or town has accepted the provisions of Section 8J is hereby authorized to allocate all funds received from fines assessed for violations of handicapped parking in said city or town to the Commission on Disabilities. This would help to do any type of programs or any type of infrastructure work that would benefit disabled residents of the city. It would also allow to bring the parking fines for handicap violations up to the 21st century, because we are behind the times on the fines that we are giving. And we would also be able to supplement paying additional enforcement officers to making sure they can go around and find the people that are using expired handicap placards, parking in handicap spots, parking in the laddered crosswalks that are in between handicap spots where people think that those are privileged spots for them because they think they can park there. So that's one reason why a lot of cities and towns try to do that. My third goal is to establish a permanent policy within the city of Revere that all publicly city-run meetings and boards have live-streamed hybrid capabilities. The objective to this would allow people with all abilities, languages, ages, and schedules to be able to take part and have a voice at all public meetings. Live translations would also then be capable due to technology. Along with this, the Commission on Disabilities is hoping to pilot a program having an ASL interpreter at monthly Zoom meetings with the hope of expanding this to all city meetings. So it is through the state legislature right now in the open meetings. It's set to expire, I believe, in July for hybrid meetings or Zoom meetings. There are some advocates and state legislators that are trying to expand that. But when you talk about accessibility and having accessibility for all, one thing that came out of COVID that's good, not that anything did come out of COVID being good is we've seen technology can be used in that way to give accessible means to everyone. So that is one of my goals that I'm hoping to get the support of the city to pilot if we can't get it done on the state level.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions? Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to commend you, Ralph, Mr. Chairman, for your work and bringing up that point about the handicap placards and in terms of getting the fines directed toward the Commission on Disabilities or a department within the city dealing with disabilities. I would love to talk with you offline and maybe propose that to, so that we can get the ball rolling on that. That makes total sense.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other comments, any other questions? Do we have any idea how much money we receive right now in handicap parking fines?
When I originally was going to be doing this before COVID, when I first came onto the Commission on Disabilities, I had a report run at that time. In that 1 year, I believe it was in 2017 or 2018, at that time there was roughly $50,000 was being taken in for that. So that was then.
And that $50,000 right now is
going to the
into the
general fund.
to fund.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's, I believe it's, I think he said 15,000, not 50. Oh, Ralph, 50?
No, it was 50.
In 1 year?
In 1 year.
I'll have to check that. I think
Yeah,
that
back in
seems a bit high.
2000. It's for it was for handicap violations. I still have the report, so I can get it to you. It was run from the parking department.
Yeah, we could check those numbers. Matter of fact, that fine can be raised to $300 by Mass General Law, and like Ralph said, those fines can't go into a special account for handicap-type activities, so I can get further numbers on that. It seems a little high, but not that, I've been wrong before, but we can definitely break out the handicap spots, but we do charge, a $100 violation for that, but by law, it could be increased to $300.
I do know, I'll just say this, and I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody, would disagree that people should not be parking in a handicapped spot if there's not a need or if they don't have authorization to park there. But one thing I find, and I don't know how often it happens, but there's a lot of times, sometimes people's placards fall and they're not seen. And then they wind up getting the ticket, and then they have to and these type of things happen. But as long as they're being resolved for the people, because there's legitimate people that have handicap parking placards or handicap, where they, and sometimes for whatever reason they don't, they might not have them at the time, where they're in another vehicle and they, But
8 times out of 10, people that are parking in a handicap spot that don't have a placard are not supposed to be there. Also, if you don't have it in the car, it's not a reason you still can't park there. So if unfortunately, that's why that handicap placard, they got rid of the plates. They more have the placards, so you take it with you.
Right.
But if you don't have it with you, unfortunately, you're not supposed to park there, and you can't appeal it.
Right.
But usually, if they fall, it's easy to appeal.
Yeah.
It's very easy to appeal. You just send it in. You don't even have to show up. 9 times out of 10, you don't have to show up. You take a copy of your placard with you. You send a copy of your placard with the application for an appeal.
Believe me, I try not to get in the weeds with parking tickets, but, you do get the complaints from time to time. People, I had my placard fell, or they couldn't read it,
And they're terrible. The way that they make them now, the material that they make, they don't like staying on the mirrors.
Yeah.
Is the big problem with them.
Yeah, well, but yeah, we should be fining people an appropriate fine who are taking a spot from an otherwise handicapped person, for sure. So, all right, well, if there's no other questions, thank you for being here, and seeing and hearing no other questions, we'll move along. Thank you again, appreciate it. Okay, so we'll move along to Consumer Affairs, Section 2, page 111.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. My name is Alan Fitzmaurice. I'm the director of the Revere Office of Consumer Affairs. And as most of you know, the majority of our workday is spent resolving complaints filed by residents through the Attorney General's Consumer Advocacy and Protection Division. In addition to Revere, we also serve 13 other municipalities on the North Shore. So when a resident of one of those communities has a dispute with a business, they go online, they file their complaint, and then it's sent to our office. We also will handle a complaint filed by a resident out of state who has a business dispute with a business that is located in one of the 14 municipalities. In addition to the consumer to business disputes, we also handle disputes between tenants and landlords. The dispute filed by the tenant, and this could range anywhere from a traditional security deposit issue to now, for example, we have complaints filed by residents of apartment complexes who are being charged for parking spaces that simply don't exist. In the beginning of the COVID-19 epidemic, we were tasked with also assisting people facing a housing crisis, and we started to receive referrals from the Attorney General's office and assisted people facing a housing crisis by assisting them with filing applications for the RAFT and IRMA program. The other large part of our work that we always wish we had more time for is consumer education. Coming out of last year's COVID epidemic, we saw a large amount of travel and event-related complaints. And that tailed off. We don't get very many of those now, but we did see, and we're continuing to see, a large number of complaints dealing with home improvement and contractor issues. We've started to make that a primary focus of the consumer education outreach activities that we do, because there are laws in place and there are remedies available through an arbitration process for a resident who has contracted with a home improvement contractor or a service company and has not gotten what they paid for. I'm very delighted to announce that a member of the city's ambassador program will be shifting over to our department, and he will begin working with us on a regular part-time basis, assisting with the resolution of consumer complaints. This year we are planning to sponsor a shredding event. I believe that was a suggestion that you had made, Mr. Chairman, at a council meeting, that we bring back the shredding event for residents, and we're planning one for the fall. And I'm looking to find a sponsor, a local business, to help defray the costs. And we're also in discussions. Part of our, as I wrap up here, I won't take too much more of your time, but our outreach activity last year involved appearances on local radio public affairs shows. We got tremendous feedback from that, from both the stations and consumers. So we are looking at producing and hosting a weekly public affairs show to promote our office and educate consumers. That's about it. We just, we're on target to exceed the number of cases and the amount of money that we returned to consumers from last year.
Thank you for that dissertation. I appreciate it. Any counselors have any questions for Mr. Fitzmaurice? No questions, no comments? Is it, I won't keep you here too much longer. So what's the staffing level in your office right now? There's you and,
There's myself and a part-timer at 16 hours a week, Marie Lepori, who's been with the office for, I think now 13 years. She works Monday through Thursday from 9 until 1.
okay, and the total budget that the taxpayers are responsible for is just under $25,000, am I correct in reading that?
Going forward this year, last year and the year before, we operated solely on the grant fund. Yeah.
Okay. And any other questions or comments? Well, we appreciate it. I know you're like a one-arm paper hanger down there. It's always kind of been that type of office where, people, you got 60,000 residents, and I've always been a huge advocate of the Consumer Affairs Office. I mean, they've always done great work as long as I've been part of city government. Sometimes people don't know where to turn for help, and it really is a great resource. And I don't think enough people, not that I'm trying to drum up business down there, because I know, but I don't think enough people utilize it. Sometimes, you hit a stone wall with companies, and, it's kind of like that help me Hank stuff, I mean, if you can't get anywhere yourself, you try to reach out to someone else who has a bigger hammer, and, the city obviously has that, through Consumer Affairs. So appreciate your work. Thank you very much. Okay. This is great. We're moving right along. So from Consumer Affairs, we'll move on to the Human Rights Commission, Section 2, page 114. Anybody here from the Human?
I guess I'll do it.
Okay.
Good evening, councilors. Thank you. The HRC budget is pretty lean. We did have a position budgeted last year in that budget for $85,000 for a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer. Those dollars were repurposed for the hiring of the chief of talent and culture. So this year's fiscal year 23 budget is just $10,000 for associated cost with regard to the Human Rights Commission. Those positions are not paid, so there's no salary lines for any of the board members. It's just simply a $10,000 line item for any associated costs with regard to the Human Rights Commission. So pretty simple budget. Happy to answer any questions on that if there are any.
Councilor Serino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Visquet, for stepping in lieu of a representative from the HRC. Regarding the $10,000 that's under office supplies, I'm just strictly asking because every other budget, that seems a bit high for a commission. The Concom gets $600 for office supplies, the License Commission $3,000, the Senior Center gets $5,000 for office supplies, HR $1,500, your office at the CFO's office $10,000, the same amount. It just seems a bit much when in FY22 up to the end of Q3, they only spent $770. So what is the rationale behind $10,000? I know it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big number, but it just kind of jumps out at you.
No, it's a fair question, Councilor, and I think the office supplies is a bit of a misnomer. It's meant for all general supplies, whether it's if they had to go to a meeting or travel allowance and reimbursable expenses of the HRC would fall in that same $10,000. It was just put in an office supply line almost as a matter of convenience. We created that account and that fund newly for fiscal year 22, so it probably could be broken out a little better to break down particular items, whether it's travel reimbursement, whether it's meetings and such. So office supplies is a bit of a misnomer. It is an amount that we wanted the budget to ensure that they had enough money to do any of the initiatives they were tasked to do in any of those dollars that are appropriated that aren't used will revert back to the general fund. So I can get you a little more detail on particular expenses in this year by tomorrow, so you have them, but I just think that office supplies is almost a catch-all for general expenses of the HRC.
One more question. Any reason why?
Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any reason why this wouldn't fall under the talent and culture department?
No particular reason. I think it could very well fall under there. I think we just kind of left it as it was for consistency. I know Councilor Rizzo loves all these new budgets we bring up, so no, but it's a good point. I think as we evolve and create this department and this budget, we could definitely create some synergies and try to consolidate some of these budgets.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rich. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, I don't really have any questions. I mean, that's a very valid identifier from Councilor Sereno. I mean, you've got, a position essentially that was eliminated and kind of moved over to talent and culture, and now we're throwing in $10,000 of office expenses. In the grand scheme of a $212 million budget, I mean, 10,000 isn't gonna do anything. But at the same time, you got to. This is why we look at line items, and it definitely warranted asking. So I appreciate the question, Councilor Sereno. Any other councilors? Okay, I guess we can move on from here.
Thank you, Council.
And so we'll move right along. Section 2, page 117, library.
Do I have to repeat myself? No. I'm going to just talk about the accomplishments that I'm most proud of, which is the condition of the building. When I inherited the library right before COVID, it was a mess. There was a lot of old items piled up, junk, some of it not. We successfully auctioned some items off that went back into the general fund. But we cleaned out the library completely and refurbished the old floors, brought them back to life. So that's like one of my most accomplishments. And then another one was kind of revitalizing the staffing. We didn't have a lot of staff, so we couldn't really successfully run programs and do what we wanted to do for the community. So I helped to create some new positions with the union and added some new roles and responsibilities and successfully administered them to some of the staff that was already there and created a couple of new positions. With the new staff that we have, we are able to do a lot more. The only new items that are on the budget for FY23 are 2 more staffing positions, office supply for $6,000, and a furniture budget for $40,000. The 2 new positions are young adult librarian and adult librarian. In order to successfully run programs and provide needs to the community in those areas, I think it's best that we have professionals in those positions to run programming and meet the community needs. So that's really it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No questions, no comments? This is incredible.
No, I'll,
Council President Visconti.
welcome, Ms. Luongo. How are you? And
I'm fine.
I appreciate you being here. Can you help me, maybe Rich can answer this as well. we're looking at it, looking at the numbers. You said you've added a couple of positions. Correct me if I'm trying to read these. I think Rich makes these numbers quite smaller, so I can't see them. But help me understand the reasoning behind the positions and where they're getting paid from. If you can elaborate a little bit more on, is that opera money or is that grant funded other than opera funds that are being used, Rich or Ms. Luongo?
It's out of the city's budget. I think we maybe contributed in half of one of the positions through grant money, if I was correctly, is that correct?
I can answer that. So this, the budget for fiscal year '23 has certainly, you'll see an increase in the library funding. We trying to come back from the pandemic now that we're open, and we've done some studies and had some feedback from some of the library trustees that indicate we're one of the lowest funded libraries per capita in the Commonwealth. So we certainly don't want that moniker. So we have increased the library supplies budget and some of the line items for capital improvement. In talking with Diana and her initiatives on staffing levels, we did a little dollar trading, and she does get entitlement grants for the library, and we are asking her to fund her 2 new positions through those grants, and in return, what we did is we increased funding for supplies as well as capital improvements, not only within this budget, but also within the capital improvement plan. And we're also asking the council to fund a bookmobile initiative that Diana and her staff are putting forward for 2023. So we're just trying to claw back, get back to our staffing levels from pre-pandemic, and also give some additional funds to the library so they can expand their programming and services.
Okay. Well, thank you for the explanation. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Silvestri.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for being here, Ms. Longo. Can you just explain what's the difference between a young librarian, a young adult librarian, an adult librarian, and then a library assistant? So there's 3 library assistants, and then there's 2. Is there a qualification difference? Is there? I guess my question is there a reason why a library assistant couldn't handle one of the other 2 positions?
Yes, there is a difference in titles, but also in the services that they provide. So in order to successfully run programming and keep up with the trends within the library culture, I feel it is important to have the background and educational piece. I'm myself in school getting my master's degree. I have been in the library for 10 years, but the stuff that I have learned in school over the past 2 years is immense compared to what I learned being on the job. So I do think that professional staffing is needed at the library. It's been a long time since there's been professional staff at the library. I think that you don't need an education to work at the library and that you can do many things in life, and it's wonderful. But I think for certain positions, if you really want to excel, I think it is important.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Diana. Just for clarification, because I was a little confused, Rich, with the explanation on the 2 additional positions that have been requested, total salary, other sources. So are those, that is grant funded? Those positions are grant funded?
Yes, every year the city, through its cherry sheet, gets our earmarks for the library, and those dollars are put aside specifically for the library. And there's also another entitlement grant that Diana could probably speak to a little bit more, but there are 2 different grant funds that the library gets. So instead of funding supplies and repairs to the library through those grants, we decided to budget those in the general fund as an appropriation and have Diana fund these 2 new positions with those grant dollars, because some of those grants come with the stipulation that you can't supplement the budget with these grants, you can only add services and provide new services. So since these are new positions and they're providing additional services, it's a proper expenditure of that particular grant.
So there's grant monies that are normally given to the library.
As long as we follow the rules of the grant, every year we do usually get them.
Right, but
And then
so-
there's an additional grant that, I think it was through opera fund, and that I was not through the city one, through the library board of commissioners. And I requested to use some of those dollars towards staffing, and they granted me permission to do that. You don't always get granted permission to do that.
But, so you're talking about ARPA funding then?
For
Like
some,
that's, you know,
so
because,
there are two
because
different
if this
grants.
is, like, my question, I guess, is, are there new grants that have become available? Or is this the same grant, but we're creating two new positions, so where did that money used to go? Like, what, like, if we're getting the same money every
Yeah.
year through the grants, and now we're creating two new positions, I'm just confused as to where the two new positions are being funded from.
I can help clarify that. There's one particular grant, there's a formula grant that the library gets every year. That grant comes in just through I think the Mass Library Commissioners. The second grant isn't necessarily a grant, but it's a public library appropriation through the cherry sheets. Those cherry sheet dollars make you allocate those dollars. I think this year's $137,000. It goes specifically to the library, so we don't bring those dollars into the general fund. We keep them in a special revenue fund specifically for the library. Now, with the previous director, he didn't really spend a lot of his grants, so we had a little bit of a buildup that Diana's been using to do some capital improvements over there and clean it up. And then we had the pandemic, which really kept the library closed, and those grant dollars were there. So there is a funding source for these two particular positions. It is a recurring funding source. It is not ARPA funds. They are dollars that are specifically allocated to the library for the library. But what you can't do is you can't say, hey, the library needs 600,000, we're gonna lower it 500,000, we're gonna use 100,000. They only allow you to supplement the budget and add additional services, add additional staff with these dollars. So it kind of aligned with the idea that two new positions to expand services, so we're using those grant dollars for those particular positions. And then what we did, as opposed to funding a position with the appropriation, we decided to fund more supplies and more capital expenditures for the library within the appropriation that's before you tonight.
Okay, so some of that funding came from grant money that wasn't expended because of COVID or whatever, and the library was closed, and, am I correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to know, look, you know, for what it's worth, I mean, you know, for years, I mean, personally, I'd love to see a new library someday, or at least an expansion, because I've always viewed the library as, you know, kind of the center of our community. I mean, I think that you look around other communities and, you know, there's some beautiful libraries around, and, you know, not to take anything away, I think it has a lot of charm, but again, it's old and it needs TLC and it needs to be expanded, and I think there's a lot of other things we can do. So this isn't in fact, my wife used to be a trustee of the library, so the library is near and dear to us. But, you know, when it comes to funding, we just want to know, I mean, the purpose of our committee is to figure out where the money's coming from, how we're going to fund things going forward. Hopefully there's some grant money down the road to maybe do some, not just capital improvements, like, you know, 40,000 in capital improvements, but maybe there's some grant money. In fact, I remember, I mean, this going back, I want to say, like, oh my God, I don't know, it's got to be 10, 12, 14 years ago. The council at that time voted down, we were offered a grant from the state that was pretty significant, in the millions of dollars, but we had to kick in several million, whatever it was, and for whatever reason, it was denied back then. And you know, you can only imagine what we could have done with those dollars back then as compared to if we got even those same dollars today. So, you know, a little discouraging from that standpoint, but hopefully down the road, there'll be more opportunities like that we can take advantage of. You know, because that's an investment, that to me is an investment in our community that you can realize some real serious benefit from, you know, whether it be adults, children. I mean, it crosses, you know, all demographics, all socioeconomics. I mean, it can be a real solid place, and is a solid place for people. I just think there could be more of it. So, Diana, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate you answering the questions, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we will move along. Parks and Recreation, Section 2, page 120.
Hi, everybody. Chairman, councilors. My name is Michael Hinojosa, and I am the Director of Parks and Recreation. If you don't mind, I'm going to do a little something different and just hand you out a sheet just so that, to save a little time, you guys can take a look at what we do and I don't have to talk about it. Thank you. Just very quickly, I'll read our mission statement, because this essentially kind of sums up what we do on a daily basis. So it's to enhance the quality of life for all citizens of the city of Revere by offering active recreational, educational, cultural programming services for all age groups, while providing facilities that are safe, accessible, and aesthetically pleasing to the entire community. So that kind of sums up what I do on a daily basis. In front of you, you have about 100 programs that we run throughout the year. I won't sit here and mention every one of them, but we are busy. So, and like everybody, I don't know about anybody else, but you know, coming out of COVID, this year has been, I can't even explain it. People want things. Our participation is through the roof. So if you want me to stand up here and tell you how proud I am of my staff and the stuff that we have been able to accomplish and the amount of participants that we now have in our programs, that's it. So if you're looking at my budget, there have been a couple of ads. One has been an activity coordinator. And the other two are two pool managers that we have added. So, in addition, we have now taken over the aquatics program, or the Garfield pool, and we are now running an aquatics program. So, very excited. We actually have our first Learn to Swim class come this Tuesday. So.
Okay, so
any questions?
Thank you very much. Members of the committee first. Anyone have any questions? Councilor Serino or Councilor Visconti? Councilor
right.
Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Michael. Thank you for being here. You are quite busy, I must say. That's for sure. I think that's an understatement. But I guess my one of, you know, your budget seems to be, I know you added a couple of positions. I think, you know, the other sources, is it right to assume that those are opera money? None
of it is opera money.
None of it is opera
None of it, no.
Okay, so, those all grants?
So the two pool positions are self-generating.
Okay.
So we generate revenue. They're paid out of our newly created pool revolving account.
Love to hear that.
Yeah.
That's great. The other thing, I guess my biggest, the biggest investment that obviously the city has in your department is obviously the Robert Hass Health and Wellness facility that is. Talk about it a little bit. Let's. I know it's a big investment for the city. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, we're investing approximately about $1.1 or $1.2 million in that facility, which I think is something that, if operated correctly, will be self-generating and can help self-generate that project over there. Where do we stand on that?
Okay. So I'll let Rich speak a little bit, but just where we stand right now, we're cleaning the place out. We're getting estimates on floor cost, gym equipment cost, and trying to put a very well-formed business plan in place so that we can kind of run and operate it with some revenue coming in. Yes.
Yeah, I can confirm that we have earmarked $1.1 million for the opening of the Haas Health and Wellness Center. We have a 3-year lease for the building right now. We're paying the lease, we're paying the utilities, and we are in the process of cleaning out the old equipment and designing a new health and wellness center. Revenues generated from memberships, classes, and other types of activities in that facility by federal law. We're required to regenerate those revenues back into the ARPA fund. So like Michael said, we're hoping that after we get through a couple of years, that will be a fully self-supporting operation over there. So this first year is going a little slow. It's approximately 25,000 square feet. It's a large area. It's dated. People who've been in there, they probably remember the old Nautilus or whatever gym it was the last time it was open. But we're working with the landlord. He's putting all new HVAC in there. He's doing repairs to the bathroom, electrical, any type of stuff that is comes with his building is his responsibility, and what our responsibility is to get inside, clean up, and make it a welcoming place for the community. So those operations are active right now. We don't have a budget before you because we really don't have any particular employees in there right now. We're just getting costs, removing equipment, surplus and stuff, and really trying to give it a new look and feel so it has it's rejuvenated for the city and its residents.
Is that building going to be, will it be utilized for our younger youth as well? Or is it geared to our teenagers and our adults, seniors? What's that game plan?
I'll defer to Michael to speak in specifics, but it's geared towards all residents. We certainly we have a focus on middle school kids. There is a gap there for activities for that population to do so. That's certainly some of the ideas we're thinking about and trying to create programming for that. But we certainly want it to be for the elder population, for our middle-aged population, and a lot of those programs and such will be led by Michael and his staff, so I can defer to him on any particular ideas on that.
Great. Michael, thank you. You, like I said, operated correctly and efficiently. I assume it'll be able to stand on its own, which from this side of the podium, obviously, is what we're looking for. Just trying to have it fund itself is the biggest concern we have. But I'm sure you'll do a great job, and I look forward to the opening.
Yeah, everything that we do at Parks and Recreation, right, usually typically, I don't like to stand up here and ask for a whole lot. Usually we can self-generate our own money, which we do a pretty good job at. So my guess is the Robert Haas Health and Wellness Center will do the same. Great. It may take me a couple of years, but we'll get there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, Council President Visconti stole my question. I was going to ask about ARPA funds and how the pool was being taken care of, the pool positions. But I guess while I have the floor, I'll pull a Councilor Novoselsky and ask for an update on the St. Mary's ball fields with regard to the extra netting for those families on Washington Ave that have expressed concerns about the baseballs and softballs going over.
So, like everything else in this moment in time, getting services to be rendered is not the easiest of things. So we had a pretty extensive plan in place to redo the netting. The problem with the netting that I had generated a purchase order for was the poles had to go 8 to 10 feet into the ground. We could not get equipment the way St. Mary's is designed right now to get that equipment in there to put up this netting system. So we've now come up with another idea of adding 10 feet of fence to go up to protect those houses. So a little bit more cost effective, maybe not quite as aesthetically pleasing, but yes, it is in place. Paul Argenzio, Chris Fabiano, they are working on it as we speak. So we met down there about a month ago. So, but if you call me, I will get you an official update.
Any other councilors? Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mike, thank you. I just want to commend you. So often you hear people say there's not enough going on in the city for kids. This here proves that there's more than enough. If you're looking in the right places, there's a ton of activities going on, and it just keeps growing every year. And I want to commend you and your staff on a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to echo what Councilor Silvestri said. This list in front of me completely blows me away. You guys do so much more work than people know about. And I, again, want to commend you. You do a great job. And also, if I may, please allot some time and space for the Revere High School boxing program at the new facility.
Yeah, actually, somebody called me up last night and said that there was some interest of putting something in the rec building at 150 Beach Street right now. So I haven't heard from Officer Singer yet, but I'm sure we will touch base over the next couple of days and we can start talking about space. But 321 Charger Street also, the Haas Health and Wellness Center will have an area for kids to go in. So not to go back, but to answer your question, yes, there is, we are targeting every age group from youth all the way up to senior at the Health and Wellness Center. So there will be something for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
I think every councilor has spoken. Well, that just leaves me. So, Michael, obviously the department has grown, and under your leadership, I mean, we've seen program after program after program that's been implemented. We can remember that department back at the time you took over, and it's amazing. It's unrecognizable at this point. So, you've done a great job. I know there's, not that I've got any complaints yet, but I know there's always challenges in giving out fields to different organizations who look for them, and I don't know what the gymnasium situation is like now and how you've worked that out, because I've been gone for a couple years and back now, so I don't know if there's any further arrangements you've made with the schools in terms of the basketball courts or the utilization of those facilities. But it's never been easy, and it's like juggling chainsaws all the time for you. And I totally I respect the job that you've done. And unlike a lot of different departments, you generate a lot of your own revenue. So the money that the taxpayers actually have to fund for the amount that they get back in return really is incredible. And I think, obviously, I should say, that is because you are generating a significant amount of revenue that allows you to go forward with these programs and hire the necessary personnel to carry them out. So I'm proud of the work that you're doing. As a taxpayer, as a resident, I appreciate the work you're doing, and keep up the good work.
Thank you. Just quickly to answer that question, basketball, gymnasiums, that has been worked out very well. So we have pretty much access to any gym in the city. People have been utilizing them. So whether it's my program or somebody else's program, but we've been able to facilitate a lot of recreational activity in these gyms. And one more turf field with lights, maybe at Gibson over the next year or two, and then we'll be in really good shape. So we'll be able to provide that passive recreational activity for everybody. So
great. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you again, Mike.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank
you too. Thank you. Okay, We'll move on to page 123, Historical and Cultural Resources. It's only a $10,000 budget. I don't know who's here representing that. Is that you, Rich?
Yes, this one should be very brief. Several years back, we were approached by the historic building that we own, and we're trying to build up to become an attraction in the city, and they had some funding needs to help with utilities. So we had funded $10,000 in the budget to help them simply pay their fuel bills for their heating system and their electricity and otherwise. So those dollars, we've just continued to appropriate $10,000. You might not see any activity in that because usually at the end of the year, they come with all their bills and we offset the costs that they paid. So no staffing, just us paying some of the utilities. But it's worth noting that we've received some substantial grant dollars to actually bring that place modernized a bit. We did just do the whole parking lot over with, doing some facilities work inside, and I believe there is plans now to try to get the entire electrical system replaced. I think it's old knob and tube wiring in there. So with Elle Baker and her help in community development, we're really trying to revitalize that place. But the $10,000 simply is just for utility costs to operate that building. So happy to try to answer any questions, but it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so this is for the Historical Society, correct?
Exactly, yep.
Okay. Any questions, comments, anything? I just like to throw a shout out because I'm familiar with the work that's being done down there, and I want to give a huge shout out to our Northeast Regional School Committee man, Anthony Caggiano, who has secured significant amount of funding, free labor to do a lot of the work in the Historical Society that I guess is just about underway. So, thanks to, obviously thanks to Anthony, thanks to the kids at the Northeast Regional Vocational School and their administrators and support team that's going to be guiding them through the project because, obviously it's an old building, it needs it. You had alluded to the knob and tube wiring, we haven't heard that terminology since the 70s. So, we're grateful that we're going to be moving on to them, to a more, and actually a safer building. So that's great. And unless there's any questions, I wouldn't think there's any opposition to funding the Historical Society, correct? Okay, well, thank you for that presentation.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, that's, we're coming up on the last two departments. We'll go to travel and tourism right now. That would be page 125.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. Just want to catch you up on the last 5 months of the office. Conversations for this began, first off, the office was identified in the master plan as a need, and the office existed in the past in some capacity. But in the last 5 months, we sort of began the conversation in September, and we formalized the process and said we're moving ahead in January. I was brought on in May, and here we are. Since January, we took the master plan recommendation of reestablishing the dormant Revere Travel and Tourism Council and established this office. We conducted a listening tour of regional destination cities and organizations around the Commonwealth, Gloucester, Concord, Quincy, Newburyport, the north of Boston, the greater Boston, the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism. I met with them as many times as they would want to meet with me so that we could learn some best practices and the way they operate and bring it back. Several different models around the state. We're kind of modeled after Quincy. We conducted a successful RFP for a website design. Construction is underway. The company there's only one company that bid, but they happened to do the website for Concord, Plymouth, Salem, and basically all your best tourism cities in Massachusetts that are not Boston or Cambridge. We reestablished Revere's relationship with Regional Destination Marketing Office, like I said, but the important thing about this is it makes Revere now eligible for grant money from tourism, from the state, and ARPA is a recovery grant. Beyond the 30 million, there's billions that has been allocated because this is a recovery grant for tourism. So now Revere has a chance to grab some of that money. We formalized, I had my own individual relationships with these people, but this office has formalized partnerships with HYM, the Revere Beach Partnership, the Chamber, the Revere Society of Cultural Historical Preservations, and so on, and all of our destination businesses and restaurants and hotels. We published a travel guide in late May, early June. That'll live digitally on our website, as well as, which will be ready in July. It's on the revere.org page now, and it's being distributed basically to every hotel on Interstate 93, 95, 90, and the Boston area. I can give you a breakdown, but it's basically they put like 3 or 4 booklets in each hotel. Somebody goes around each day, takes a picture. When those booklets are gone, they come back the next day and fill them up. So we actually get some data as to where our booklets are being pulled from, which is exciting for me to be able to look at next year. We have social media accounts, which is at the core of this. This office is the marketing arm of the city. And so life beyond opera, that becomes a huge component of it. So we're going to be hopefully pumping up our followers. If you don't follow our social media already, please do. We worked with the mayor's office to, thanks to one of your motions, I believe it might have been Rotundo, who established a city historian, that there was a need for it. So Mr. Perlman, my former 8th grade teacher and college professor, is coming on, and basically sort of an extension of the tourism office for free. It's a volunteer position. And I know we like that, Councilor Visconti. And I'm very proud that we've established a partnership with Boston University and Endicott College. Endicott is supplying us with interns for event management. They're kind of working with FMP right now, and we're sharing them. And then in the fall, BU, so in the budget, there's part-time salaries. That's for the internships. We did advertise this semester, but we were late to the game, and the BU professor and I were pretty sure we weren't going to get anyone, and that's exactly what happened. But next semester, we're going to advertise. I just talked to the professor today. We're getting ready to go out with it, and basically, we'll have a graduate student from the School of Marketing and Hospitality sort of work with us, and also they love us, and we're in our brand new partnership, and they sort of get to build this canvas with us. Their senior classes, there's 2 of them for marketing, are going to work to, we're going to identify a problem that the city has, analyzing our night and weekend economy or developing a tourism master plan. And that senior class, both of them, they can either work on the question parallel to each other, or you can give them 2 different questions or problems. And they're going to work on it all next semester for us and present us with the results. And that's a free service that BU's doing in exchange for the potential of hiring one of their interns. So that about gets you up to speed for FY22. Our FY23 goals, I feel like a lot of them are going to weave into some of the questions you may have. So, and I'm very excited to talk about my funding cliff. So whenever you're ready.
Any Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Charlie, for being here tonight. Congratulations on your new position. And, you're a friend and a constituent, so I don't mean to grill you, and this is not personal. This is just kind of an observation, and after, hearing from residents who saw about the creation of the department. You had mentioned Concord, Plymouth, Quincy. In Concord, you have the Battle of Lexington and Concord. It's the home of the Revolution, Louisa May Alcott's house. Walden Pond. Plymouth, you have Plymouth Rock, the Mayflower, Plymouth Plantation. Quincy, the Adams Historical Site. Revere, obviously we have the beach, which is a treasure, and I feel like, the Revere Beach Partnership, the past 15 or so years, has done a tremendous job attracting people to the beach, the Sand Sculpting Festival, programming and whatnot. So my question kind of is describe the need beyond, what will this city department be doing that the partnership isn't doing, or, what else are we attracting people here for other than the beach, and kind of just what's the rationale of creating an entire city department, because at the end of the day, we, as we look at the budget and we have to answer to the people who sent us here, they see new department after new department, and this is one that kind of just, if you could elaborate.
Yeah, sure, of course. It's a fair question, a great question, a question that was asked to me by my own aunt. So I'm happy to give my speech on it. So you mentioned Lexington and Concord as your first tidbit. I would also like to add that the Battle of Lexington and Concord was part of a prolonged siege of Boston in which the Battle of Chelsea Creek was fought 30 days later. So we're part of that, which is great. And it actually incorporates into a goal that we have is to create the Rail Freedom Trail, some sort of initiative that incorporates Dorchester, Lexington, Concord, Charlestown, Revere, Chelsea, East Boston, and put together a comprehensive sort of tour of all the battlefields that took place from 1775 to 1776. So thank you for allowing me to talk about that. First off, we have more hotel rooms than almost all of those cities that resident was talking about. So we have over 1,200 hotel rooms, which makes us a major player in tourism. It allows us to participate in the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism initiatives. They look at Revere as basically an extension of downtown Boston. And so that's a huge factor in why we need a tourism office. We're also bringing online the largest development in Massachusetts history at Suffolk Downs, which is going to be its own city within the city. And HYM is thrilled to have us on board from a marketing perspective, from a way to synthesize because I look at tourism as a way to bring together the mayor's office, the recreation department, and the Office of Community Planning and Development as a way to bring us all together, because we don't quite talk to each other enough, and there's not really that organizational chart that links us all. My office should be that vessel that brings them all together and is the marketer, is the event liaison. One of the things we did was convened a special event task force. The city of Revere, we don't really talk to each other about events from department to department. The tourism office, with Dr. Barros and Diana from the library, I was sort of wearing two hats, Parks and Rec and tourism, when this special event task force came together. But now we meet twice a month to talk about the events, make them more inclusive, ways to market it, leverage our internal assets, coordinate on vendors, and more importantly, and part of this ARPA is to spend money in Revere whenever possible. That didn't exist, and the tourism office is a major player in that. And as for the partnership, the core of your question, they're beach focused. So I've been on the board for the partnership for the last 5 years. And beyond the 4 events, that's really all they do. Their marketing stops at Ocean Ave. Their grant dollars stop at Ocean Ave. Their focus stops at Ocean Ave. So they're not really there for the rest of the city. And our central business district, our historic district, our Shirley Ave district, they need help as well. They need help marketing. They need coordination for the events. They need a liaison. And also, we're one of the few, like I said, our hotel rooms and all of our natural assets, like you mentioned with the beach, I would argue to them that we are right in line with some of those cities that were named. And we are, Salem has their own economy based off the witch trials. But beyond that, our food rivals that of anyone else. Our parking down the beach is an asset. We have 3 T stops that many people don't have, and hopefully a commuter rail stop one day that will link us to the gateway of Cape Ann and Rockport and Newburyport and create this transportation hub in our city. So laying down the groundwork for this office now is critical, because when we wake up in 2026, 2027, 2028, we're going to have, hopefully, breweries, art galleries, and a brand new Suffolk Downs HYM development that all of a sudden we need to, market that. Because Mike's office, that's not their job. They're internal. Tech's office is planning, and the mayor's office is, the mayor's office. So this sort of brings everybody all together.
Thank you very much. Council President Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome Charlie, and I don't envy you because the pressure's on. You know, obviously, you know, with the probably one of the biggest investments in opera money that we're taking place, there's a lot of pressure on you to have this department succeed. And I hope that it does. Believe me, I want to see that, see it move forward and grow. Talk about, first of all, you mentioned something about part-time salaries, which I don't see in here. So I'm not sure if that, unless Rich left that out purposely, I don't know. But I don't see any of that part-time. I don't know how much that is or
It's
what that.
10,000.
Okay.
So it's 4,000 for each semester with a little bit of a buffer just in case. And that could be one student or two students, depending on how we break it up. So it could be 4 students for the whole year.
Is that in the expense item and not in the salary item?
Counsel, I think you're correct. We missed have left that off of this, but as you know, this particular budget is fully.
I just want to note that, you know, it's recorded that I caught
Slash it.
something, you know, from Mr. Viscay, and that's great. So, you know, I just want that noted.
I appreciate the set of eyes.
But moving forward, I guess talk to me about the funding. I mean, the funding cliff that you talk about. How, you know, with such a big investment in the city, and like Council Serino said, there have been residents out there that are, you know, questionable on this new department, and rightfully so, yeah, with the fact that we're investing so much ARPA money into that. Mm-hmm. What is the game plan to have that self-fund itself, sort of like, you know, Mr. Hinojosa does with a lot of his positions? You know, what's that game plan?
Sure, thank you.
And that's, you can tell I've done it. I've done
I'm
it.
noticing a pattern.
I've asked everybody, so
No,
I
yeah.
have to ask you as well.
I'm glad
I
you
wanna
did,
be
actually.
consistent with that. I mean, because my concerns is once it starts hitting the general fund.
Sure.
And that's the last thing I'd like to see is obviously, I'd love to see that department self-sustain itself and move forward. What's your game plan, and what's the thought process there?
Sure. So first off, again, thank you. Great question. It's something that I've had individual conversations with a lot of people over the course of the last few months. And Rich, please feel free to jump in any time. But so for Michael, I'm his top earner. So I've brought in over $300,000 in the last 5 years through grants alone. And an additional $250,000 to $500,000, depending on how you look at the math, on programming. So I'm already a moneymaker, and I'm hoping to bring that attitude to this office. There are a lot of tools in the tool shed, actually, to solve this. So we've had internal conversations, and Rich, please stop me or jump in, but the state allows you to add an additional visitor's fee to the occupancy rate, which is what Cambridge and Salem do, and some of them else that they dedicate that surcharge right to the tourism office or to the marketing budget of the city, so that the visitor's fee beyond the occupancy rate that's already being collected can then perpetually fund the tourism office or any marketing initiatives that will then drive more people to the hotels. So that's a pretty standard addition that we could enact. We have a new hotel this year. We have another hotel coming at Suffolk Downs. I think we have another three more hotels coming. Please, someone. We know that the current figures are about $1.2 million a year in occupancy tax, and that is sustaining our general fund right now at $240 million. So what we could do is take the next 3 hotels, which is not part of our general fund right now, and use that new revenue as a way to sustain the office. Also, this office is sort of ARPA and then post-ARPA. And so once you eliminate the special events, which is a huge portion, and that's the idea behind the special events is recovery, getting people in the city, patronizing restaurants, staying in our hotels, and most importantly, utilizing Revere businesses whenever possible to send money directly into our taxpayer pockets, that we have the ability to, the post-ARPA world would be, so for example, this office is being funded without the special events for a little under 200,000, 185,000. We just sent the Revere Beach Partnership $175,000 for this year's Sandcastles event. So there's already been investments being made by the city into tourism, and whether we allocate an additional fee or allocate new money that's beyond the existing funds, or we reallocate money that's being dispersed to other organizations. Like, for example, we support the Chamber of Commerce and we support, Rich just talked about the Historical Society. So we're already making investments. There's also another factor, sales. So our visitor's guide, so on the budget is a $7,000 line item for design of the guide. There's another $15,000 for printing, and there's another $8,000 for distribution. Sales should cover those costs, so those should come off the budget. We collected $3,000 in sales off this booklet. We basically tried to give every restaurant a free advertisement, every hotel a free advertisement. They had to come up with the advertisement, and we weren't into it for collecting money this time around. We wanted to establish the value of the office, and that hopefully will pick up that. So hopefully, when we wake up beyond ARPA, it's really just the payroll, and even then the payroll could be subsidized. And then beyond the occupancy tax, the meals tax, you have Uber fees. And again, we get into already the Uber fees that are covering the current costs. We're obviously going to probably be generating more Uber rides in the city as we bring on Suffolk Downs, as we bring on, another restaurant or another hotel, and that average could cover the cost of the office.
Charlie said a lot, and I'll try to summarize a little bit, but he did hit on some key points. In my former job, I was a finance director in the city of Salem, and we created the Destination Salem for travel and tourism. And what we did over there to fund it was to take what we collected in rooms tax and any incremental amount above what we've collected, we dedicated a portion of that to running the office. There is a law that allows us to add 2% to rooms tax. Right now, if you don't know, we get 11.7% as the rooms tax. The Commonwealth gets 5.7%, the city gets 6%. So right now we get 6% in rooms tax for all the hotels. As we get more hotels, we get more revenue. We get 75 cents on every $100 spent in restaurants through the Department of Revenue. So those meals tax and those rooms tax, if we can attract more people to come to the city, whether it be for events we're having internally or whether we're just a place that people can stay that have to go to Boston, that have to go to Salem. We are close proximity to just about all of these big tourist attraction places, and quite frankly, it's $400 or $500 a night to stay in some of these hotels. So any incremental value we can get from those meals and rooms taxes come right back to the community. So it's not as clear dollar for dollar trade, but it's really pumping money back into the Revere economy. And like Charlie said, we can certainly look at sponsorships. We can look at grant opportunities. We want to get people to come to the city and find out it's just more than the nation's first public beach. We're thriving right now, and I think I'm actually excited about this travel and tourism because I think it's really an opportunity to get people to come here, dine in the new restaurants, see some of the stuff going on, and that will perpetuate itself. And Charlie said we get a dime for every Uber ride that originates in this city, comes in a route. So that money goes to transportation and infrastructure work. If we're more visited by these people, we generate more money there. So there's a lot of revenues that could be generated in the city that it's not a clear path where you can do dollar for dollar, but there's certainly a lot of reasons to open a travel and tourism. And just in closing, the ARPA funds is specifically topic is travel and tourism, because what we're trying to do with these dollars is trying to get the economy to recover. These small businesses, these small restaurants, they're the ones that are suffering. So anything we can do to get people to come to the city and spend their money here, it's going to perpetuate itself.
Thank you very much, Rich. Thank you very much, Councilor. Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Charlie, thank you for presenting tonight. You actually did an amazing job. I got to say, you were well prepared to come in here. And, you know, a lot of people take a look at travel and tourism, and as Councilor Sereno asked, you know, what is here in Revere that would make us have this office? And as you alluded to, is our hotels. It's actually, believe it or not, travel and tourism is the third highest earner in Massachusetts. It brings in $69 billion a year, $1.2 billion in tax revenue, and 360,000 employees work in travel and tourism in the Commonwealth. So,
and we're also one of the Boston's like top 10 on any given year of most visited city in the world, right? So
correct.
Yeah.
And although we haven't had this office yet, I believe that we've been participating in travel and tourism right along and just not earning or benefiting from it. So I wish you the best of luck. As I said, you did a great job here tonight, and good luck going forward.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the support, and we definitely want some luck.
Any other councilors?
No, I just want to say echo those sentiments. Those questions weren't any mark against you as a director. I wish you the best of luck. Like I said before, we want you to succeed by all stretch of the imagination. So.
Thank you, and I want to be as lean. You know, I'm very frugal. If anybody's ever met me, I didn't have money in my pocket growing up, so I'm by nature not a spender, and so I want to keep my budget as lean as possible. I want to go out and find the money, and I want to offset this as much as possible for everybody.
So, thank you, Councilor.
Thank you.
So, I mean, right now, we're talking about no funding right now. It's all grant money for this year. So there's really...
I think there might be a $5,000 ask, non-ARPA related, for...
We left it out, Charlie.
Okay.
Okay.
Cut.
Yeah, so, it looks like it's completely grant funded. So, I mean, from a budget perspective, I mean, there's nothing we're cutting, right? I mean, but just a couple of points. And I'm going to share the sentiments of my colleagues. I mean, I've had people questioning, when they saw we have a travel and tourism. I mean, hey, listen, I hope it works. I hope people come to Revere to vacation, and I hope they want to stay here. I mean, right now, the hotels we have are primarily access to Logan. A lot of park and fly, a lot of people come here. They might spend a night or two. If the goal is, and I would like to think the goal is not just to create a department to say we have a travel and tourism department. It should have a net benefit to the city. It should be, not to say like Parks and Rec, but it should kind of lift all boats. I mean, the restaurant, we should see an increase in the receipts that restaurants around the city have. We should see an increase in hotel occupancy. I mean, if we're going to spend this money, we should have some sort of a return. I will say HYM, I don't think the city should spend 5 cents to promote HYM. We did HYM a lot of favors. And I just had breakfast with Lydia Edwards, and what Boston got and what Revere got is it's discouraging. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about travel and tourism. I think HYM, if they want to be, it's not up to us to fill their hotels. It's not up to us to promote their site. I mean, they should be kicking in. The city of Boston in 2021, I think they just did a 1.5% assessment on hotels, because they're going to be the beneficiaries of it. So the hotels are kicking back into Boston travel and tourism. So rather than the taxpayers having to fund it at some point, like I say, this is a discussion for next year or the year after or the year after that. This isn't. I'm not putting down the fact that we want to bring people and showcase our community. I do want to give a shout out though to the Revere Beach Partnership. Because when that was put together, it was put together before me. It was put together under then Mayor Tom Ambrosino. I think it has been, and the goal has always been to showcase Revere. I don't think it was, obviously the event takes place on the beach, but it kind of puts us on the map. It shines a bright light on the city of Revere and gives us some really good coverage. The city during those times has been on national television. So, we have been able to showcase the city in a way that hopefully has had benefit for the entire city. I mean, I understand they blocked the beach off and all that, but, you know, it does bring, I mean, it was up over 1 million people during the course of a few days to the city to showcase what Revere has. And as long as we have that cooperation with the DCR, I mean, you know, that's another piece to the puzzle that, you know, I think that your focus might want to be, because if people do come to the city for anything related, non-airport related, in other words, they're not just coming here, you know, from New Hampshire, spending a night at the Sheraton Four Points, or spending a night at the Comfort Inn, or at the Hampton Inn, or whatever, and they're going to, you know, ride on into Boston and take a flight out. If the goal is to have them here, then yes, a draw is going to be Revere Beach. And if we don't put a focus on keeping that beach clean and presentable, I look at the pavilions down there now, and maybe there's a plan to refurbish them, I'm not sure, but they're disgraceful. They're disgraceful. I mean, you know, you want someone to come visit your city and showcase what you have, then it needs to be, I think, a real partnership. We need to partner with the state, the DCR, and have our beach looking good. You know, you don't want people to go down, you know, to come here, stay on, you know, stay in the hotel now that's down on Ocean Ave, walk across the street to the beach, and find it not to be what they would expect if they were going to spend a week somewhere, or 4 or 5 days. So, you know, I think there's going to be, this is an ongoing process. I've got the same questions that my colleagues have got from people saying, you know, Revere's, you know, people coming to Revere on vacation. I mean, if that, you know, but I'm not going to put, I'm not putting any kind of, I'm not casting any aspersion onto it. It's wish you all the best, because if it, look, we're all up here, we want the city to succeed. We're not up here searching for failure, you know? This is a new department. We hope that, you know, and trust there's a game plan, but I think there's got to be a lot of moving parts that have to work together in order to make it successful. And I think that the more we can do kind of a la Park and Recreation, that we can get other funding sources and be a little creative to, so that once this comes out of ARPA funding, once it comes out, there might be other grants, but let's just say, for the sake, worst case scenario, there's nothing, we want to keep the office going, I think we should be looking at other revenue streams to try to fund the department. That's basicly all that I'm
Couldn't agree more. Well said.
All right, so I don't know if any other councilors, nope, okay, well, then we're good. Thank you, brand new department, we wish you all the best.
Thank you, councilors. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think that just brings us to one last department. Rich, you said you were going to talk about Veterans Affairs, and Veterans Affairs is, let me just get the page here. It is Section 2, page 105.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself from any conversation on this matter.
Okay. Councilor Silvestri has recused himself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. I, on behalf of Councilor Silvestri, also the Veterans Affairs Director, I'm Rich Visquet, CFO, and I will try to keep this very brief. I know we're after 7 o'clock cutoff, but just want to recognize the efforts of the Veterans Office. Donna Dresden, she does a great job down there, holding everything together. She's a one-woman staff there for Mark, and Mark himself, he's, I've been in 5 different towns. He's probably the fastest veteran agent I've seen. He's, he works 24/7. I get texts, nights, weekends. We're always trying to help out our veterans, and I just want to thank him for that service. Within this budget, as everybody knows, it's we're the fastest growing community in the state. Over 63,000 people now. The Veterans Office processes a ton of claims, over 239 claims for this year alone, 35% more than the year before. This number is set to grow each year based upon population. So we did have 2.5 positions in the Veterans budget. We have decided to try to fund 1 full-time clerk to add to the 2.5, so we removed a part-time position, and we are looking to fund a 3rd clerk, a low-level clerk. Donna is, she's great, but she's got a lot of time accrued. She's been here for a while, vacation, sick, personal time. Want to make sure we always keep that office staffed 39 hours plus here in the city. So other than that, I think the veterans budget is pretty level funded. We do get 3/4 of most of our veterans benefits back to us through the cherry sheet. So if we spend $1 on veteran services, in some cases we get 100% reimbursement for certain services. Most other times we're getting 75% back. So that's $700,000. We usually generate back about $500,000 there. So you know, looks like a big budget, but when you take the net dollars out, it's a pretty lean budget, and happy to try to answer any questions for you with regard to that.
Comments, questions? Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say that I'm really, really happy to see extra positions opening in this department. Mark Silvestri and Donna work harder than any two people I've ever seen, and when one of them is not in that office, it's an absolute nightmare. So I'm very happy to see that there's extra help going there, and I just, you know, I know you just gave Donna credit, but I just cannot say enough about the amount of work that woman does, that Donna Driesen does for that office. I've been working on with their food bank, the veteran food bank, since the onset of the pandemic. And I know that she puts in 20, 30 hours a week sometimes, and she doesn't even get paid for those extra hours. So I just want to make sure she gets the credit she deserves. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions? Council President Visconti.
I'll be quick. I couldn't agree more. Both that department with both of them there is a great team. I really, not because he's sitting on this side, but both of you and Mark, as well as Donna, do a great job for the veterans. I can't say enough for what's done over there. Just a quick question on the benefits, okay? Is there, I see it, you know, what we spend and what we give out. And it looks as though 2022 is the same as 2023. Does it ever increase? Like, are we getting any more? I can't see why we can't get any more. I don't know that process, so.
You mean, are you speaking to the appropriation of
The appropriation,
$705,000?
yeah,
Yeah,
it seems to be the same number. Is that ever growing? I mean, I'm sure as the city grows and veterans are in the city, shouldn't that number grow as well?
Well, the number's always been sufficient to cover costs. Again, it's reimbursable, so whatever money we spend in fiscal year '22, we see that come back in our cherry sheets the following year. So we've never had to exceed 705 gross expenses, so
Okay.
we certainly wouldn't be opposed to raising that if we didn't think that was enough, but our current trends have showed that is a sufficient amount, and I'm certainly not going to cut a veterans benefit budget. I tried that once.
No,
and
I
got
wouldn't.
my
I'm not
head
that-
kicked in, so that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, and that's not my objective there. I thought it would go up, actually.
Yeah,
so.
again, we've always been able to keep that number at 705. There are other avenues of providing benefits, and I can't speak to them greatly. I know I've talked to Council Silvestri about those things, but there are federal programs that they do a very good job at diverting our veterans to those federal programs, which in turn allows us to maintain our appropriation at level funded.
Great, thank you. Thank you again, both Donna and Mark, for what they do. Thanks.
Any other councilors wishing to be heard? Well, I guess this will just about wrap it up, but again, before we wrap up, I'm not questioning any of the funding here because it's pretty straightforward. It's, as Council President Visconti just alluded to, it's level funded with respect to benefits to our veterans. I'd like to thank our Veteran Service Agent, Mark Silvestri, for his service, and Donna Driesen, who has been working down there. I think, God, she's been down there for probably 20 years now, and works very, very hard. I don't know if Councilor Silvestri would agree with me, but without her down there, that would be exponentially much harder to run that department. So, and I've heard him give her compliments along the way anyway. So want to thank her and Councilor Silvestri for his service. And And truthfully, I'd like to thank the veterans of our community who, you know, I know it sounds maybe a little cliche, but the bottom line is, and I know Councilor Silvestri would agree with me, you know, you sign your name in the dotted line, you know, you sacrifice your life, whether it be for, you know, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, or some retirees, you know, they give their entire lives for the sake of our country. So, you know, we're very, very grateful to our veterans, and I'm very, very happy that our veterans are well taken care of. Those veterans that need services, they know they can come to, you know, live in the city of Revere and have an office that's going to be responsive to them and help them with their needs. So, without any further comment or questions, I appreciate you making the presentation. And I appreciate the councilors being here. I know we're about a half hour over where we had said, and obviously to you, Rich, and Ashley, to you for staying the extra half hour. I appreciate it as chair of this committee, and we'll be coming back tomorrow, it looks like, for about an hour. I'd like to get with you, Rich, maybe beforehand to discuss the format. And
Absolutely.
so I can kind of talk to my colleagues and members of the committee to let them know how we're going to proceed, you know, with respect to approving the budget for FY23, and maybe we can do that tomorrow morning or something like that, if that works for you, or sometime.
Yeah, right after this meeting, we can set a time and get together for sure. Absolutely. I got a pretty open slate. I kept it open for that reason, and happy to get together with you and answer any other questions of any counselor before
Right.
tomorrow night's meeting. And
then we can coordinate with Ashley too as we go through each particular department. And for the council's edification, you may have been doing this right along anyway, but if there are any line items or any proposed cuts that you have, if you could kind of have them, maybe compilate them tomorrow, so as we go through, we can put it out for a vote, and hopefully it's not going to take too much longer tomorrow to get through it. I just want to say, and I'll probably say it again tomorrow, but I appreciate you getting the budget to us, you know, earlier than normal. It's been helpful. On a personal level, it's been helpful, and you know, we all appreciate it. We'll have the budget done by the end of the month, well in advance of the end of the month. So.
yeah, and I'd like to thank you, Councilor Rizzo, and the rest of you. I think this is my 5th budget, and I think this has been the smoothest process up to this point so far, and thank you for that. And I don't want to jinx it, but I hope tomorrow goes as smoothly as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Sereno.
Just a question, I guess, through you to the clerk for the edification of all of us. What is the plan for tomorrow night? Is it a subcommittee meeting followed by a committee or a regular council meeting?
Correct. There's a Ways and Means Subcommittee scheduled from 5 to 6, and then the regular city council meeting. The agenda was already posted the other day in accordance with open meeting law, and there was just one other communication from the mayor's office regarding an appointment.
Yeah, I think there's 4 items. There's the revolving fund approval for those budgets, capital appropriations for the capital improvement plan, this particular appropriation order, and I think there was one more. But
Water rates, maybe?
And
Water
how
rates.
can I forget the water rates? Yes, the
yes.
water rates.
So, well, again, my appreciation to those councilors that are here, not just for staying late tonight, but for the participation. This has been a lengthy process, hours and hours and hours, and not just here in the council chambers, but our own work after we leave here. And, you know, you can see the size of the document that we're getting, and so to try to put it all together is pretty arduous, but I appreciate all of their support and all of their hard work on it. So, hearing and seeing no other further business, we'll conclude our meeting for tonight, and we'll reconvene tomorrow at 5 p.m.